Hi here at Uprising. This is Uprising TV, and I'm here with Nathanael from Damim. Welcome, mate. How are you?
Hi, nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you guys are celebrating the release of Well Turned Hell, and also the signing to Church Road Records. So tell us a little bit about your new single.
It's been in the works for a long time. Like a lot of our material, you have a kind of mixture of really old riffs and sort of stubs and beginnings of songs, and some more recent bits of material that you just spontaneously want to play. And then, speaking of spontaneity, you combine that with the sort of the magic of the rehearsal room, the sort of stuff that you can only come up with if you're actually interacting with someone in the studio.
Yeah.
And you tie all that together, or rather the spontaneity in the rehearsal studio is what tends to be the glue for everything else. And when it feels like it's right and you have a satisfactory song or piece of music that speaks to you, then you can kind of go from there and try and put lyrics to it. And the lyrics, I suppose, would be very much influenced by experiences of personal loss.
Yeah.
Shall we say?
I mean, obviously, your genre, I mean, like you technically be classed as like black and death metal, I suppose, would be the one. Kind of like, who are your main inspirations at this point? And actually, is there anybody like, not necessarily the older inspirations? Is there anybody today that's up and rising that's going, well, actually, I want to kind of keep.
Well, that's an interesting question, given the fact that we've been going so bloody long.
Yeah.
So we, I'd say we started more as a kind of more of a death and thrash band.
Yeah.
And then blackened influences started to creep in. And then I guess as we got more comfortable with the aesthetic, you had other lateral influences that started to make themselves feel as we felt more comfortable being ourselves, in a sense, right? So you'll hear touches of Godflesh, Ministry, Killing Joke. Even in some of the vocal melodies, you might hear a bit of Depeche Mode or something like that, right? But it's not going to be screaming, Violator or Enjoy the Silence or anything like that. But there will be things like that. So
Subtle.
So let's say, main big players, we're talking Death, Emperor, Morbid Angel, Exodus, Overkill, but creeping in more stuff like Godflesh, Killing Joke, etc.
Okay. Well, I mean, we sort of mentioned Church Road Records, the new signing. How did that come about?
Well, funnily enough, one of the first times, actually probably the first time we actually played with Sammy, who is, I think, half of Church Road Records. I don't know if there's anybody else really involved in it other than Sammy and Justine, but there might be, so apologies to anybody who is. But no, I do think it's just them two. But I think I'd seen him with Oblivionized, but then he played, when we played this show with Exhumed upstairs the garage in London, and he played with his one-man death metal band called Regurgitate Life, and he borrowed my amp, and he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like really, there at that point, it was already clear that.
I actually had him play one of my shows with Malignancy.
Okay.
It's freaking awesome.
And yeah, so honestly, if you haven't checked out Regurgitate Life, Sammy's one-man death metal band, a project, please do so if you're a fan of that sort of thing. Honestly, it's top shelf as far as that's concerned. But we played with him then, and literally a decade later, we're signing to his label and releasing something there. So we've known him for donkey's years, and Justine, and I have faith in their integrity, which is a blessing in the music industry, and it's really good to be able to work like that.
Brilliant.
So yeah, we've known him for ages.
So what's kind of the plans from here on? Are you going to release an album or?
Well, we have an EP that's recorded and ready, mixed for the most part by Neil Kernan,
Yeah.
who you may know from, name dropping.
Yeah.
Apologies, but he is a bit of a who's who of your record collection. So whether it's Unleashed in the East, Annihilation of the Wicked by Nile, a handful of Cannibal Corpse albums,
Yeah.
Nevermore, Hall of Notes.
Yeah.
He's just really, really good and always does a sterling job. So
How's that relationship with your producer actually changed, Damien?
well, that's a good question. I never thought of it. I guess it's set a new standard in terms of making things as good as they possibly can be.
Yeah.
That this work that we believe fundamentally needs to exist, right? We need to do whatever we can to give it the best platform and the best production, the best tools, so that it can flourish and be the best that it can be.
Yeah.
So I mean, the thing is, the previous album, prior to A Fine Game of Nail, was the Difference Engine, which was a few years before that, as you may know if you follow us at all. That was mixed by a chap called Antti Usimaki, and he did an excellent job as well. And I stand by that album, and I still do think that it's still at a similar level of quality, and it has quite a unique, warm sound.
Yeah.
But yeah, working with Neil has given us the opportunity to try something different, and we really like the way that it works.
Yeah. I mean, like the length that you guys have been going, and the amount of time that you've been doing this in other bands as well. Kind of how do you keep yourself relevant, and then how do you feel that the changes in kind of death metal and black metal are moving forwards? Is it something that you see is going to be relevant for years to come?
Well, there are a lot of rabbit holes that we could go down with that question. Honestly, especially right now, at this point in time, in not just the history of art, but human history, right? But firstly, as far as relevance is concerned, I mean, is it relevant to me?
Yeah.
Do I like what we're doing? Like, if you're not, as a musician or as an artist, anything, if you're not your own biggest fan, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Okay? It's that other people like it or even love it. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's a huge bonus, and it's really it's validating. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. It's great to have people go, I really like your music.
Yeah.
But
Self.
100%.
Yeah.
If you're not making music that you're happy to listen to on repeat,
Yeah.
what are you doing? What are you doing? Right? So if you don't like it, that's absolutely fine. But if you love it, that's brilliant. But if I didn't like it, then I would be, like I said, wasting my time. So that's the main relevant thing as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
And as far as the evolving sound, you'll find that sound, and it's my personal opinion, that it seems to me that sound evolves with technology.
Yeah.
So you'll get a few milestones, like the first digital recording or the first album that's been completely made with programmed drums. I think that sounded realistic. I think that's Catch 33 by Meshuggah is one of those.
Yeah.
Right, but then all the bands start using that, like the 5150 with a tube screamer became this, in low tuning, became the sort of the standard polished death metal sound, the Andy Sneap thing. No disrespect.
Yeah.
It's a cliche for a very good reason, because it's good. But that's the thing with those kinds of technologies. If you allow yourself to just go for the new shiny thing,
Yeah.
that's the surest way to sound dated before you've even released anything,
Yes.
or to sound irrelevant. So it's not about being relevant, it's about doing our own thing. Like, does it make sense in its own microcosm?
Yeah.
If it does, great. Everything else is irrelevant,
Yeah.
right? And then there's, where are things going to go? The whole AI revolution.
Yeah.
It's going to hit music,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we've all seen
It's actually funny. I
Mid-Journey.
mean, like, obviously you mentioned AI, and I mean, like, and I have this conversation. I mean, like, I'm a teacher in my profession, and I have this conversation with my students a lot. And can you imagine AI, black metal, whereas like you're going from like your mayhem days where it's like a horrible sounding to like perfectly sounding AI music.
Well, no, here's the thing. I think that the capabilities of AI will be able to replicate everything right down to the aesthetic. We've got to a point where every single aspect of music, all the dimensions, can be totally codified, quantified, and analyzed by the algorithm to be spat out or rejigged as many times. You could easily have very convincing, I don't know, Beatles-like songs with the style of playing and sound of early Burzum or Mayhem or something like that, right? You could easily do that these days. But I still think there will be an arena for human writing because it's about the expression of the human voice, right? And we're not talking about the stuff that's going to become wallpaper for the ears,
Yeah.
right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about people who are enthusiastic about music and still want to come to gigs.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, actually, the generational change in terms of how important music is, right? When I was growing up, it was a special thing. You needed to have this network of people who had these albums that you could tape and literal tape trading. It's a cliche again for a really good reason. And that made belonging to that community something of value.
Yeah.
Right? Which with not even 2 clicks, it's just the algorithm feeds you music that it thinks you will like. Okay? That's totally devalues the whole idea of community, etc. And but that I still think there will be tribes and whatnot, and there will be some sort of market, if nothing else, for live performance, for the fact that you have fallible people who can mess up at any time or something can happen. And I think it's that edge that still will draw people to watch live performances,
Yeah, definitely.
even if the tools continue to evolve and the means of making and performing. Like you have bands that are hardly bands. They use a backing track half the time, then they go and pick up their drums and bass guitar and they do part of a number like that, and it's fine. Nobody cares. It's enjoyment for the audience. It speaks to them.
Yeah.
So that's really the main thing. And I do think there will continue to be live music will be relevant.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about your set today. So, I mean,
Okay.
obviously you played earlier on.
Okay.
How did your set go?
I think it was pretty good. I'm a little biased.
It's fine.
There was some.
It's amazing.
There were a couple of missed notes and whatnot. Hopefully, not too many people noticed, but
You're sometimes your own worst critic. I
it
suppose.
happens. But the thing is, the vibe was there, and I couldn't hear the kick drum, so I had to rely on that massive sounding snare that Flo has, which is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was together. The energy was there. People were really responsive, which was nice. It felt great, and it was the first one that we did with Ekin, who's filling in for Nick, who's playing currently, I think literally right now with Benediction in South America. So, given that he can't be in 2 places at the same time, we're getting this amazing guitarist to fill in for him as well.
Brilliant. So, well, thank you very much for taking time to chat with us today.
Thanks for making the time to speak to me
No problem.
and
Thank you
giving
very
us a
much.
platform.
Cheers.
Really appreciate it.
No problem at all.